This is a new day. This is a new day full of sound, light, and expectations. This day has been waiting for you. This day has been waiting especially for you, to embrace you and to guide you. This day has been waiting with open arms, just for you. This day is the day that we have been given. Let's not waste it. Come now, let us engage in respectful thought and learning.
Good morning. I'm Gene Positeri, and as a board member of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Youngstown, I'd like to welcome you to this service. I actually have three announcements, opportunities to get together here at the church. The first, on August 7th, on our lovely patio, there will be a happy hour from 6 to 8 p.m. Saturday night. Beer and wine and appetizers will be provided. Also, save the date for the UUYO family picnic, which will be on August 15th at Chestnut Hill Pavilion and Mill Creek Park, and more details will be provided. On July 25th, there will be a foreign policy discussion group, also here down in Channing Hall, but this will be a hybrid Zoom meeting led by Bob Seabolt, and they will discuss NATO in this hybrid session. So you can catch it on Zoom if you can't make it here on Sunday at 3 p.m. Also, I have kind of an exciting announcement, at least for me and I hope for you. On Friday, July 25th, that's this coming Friday, Dr. Anthony Fauci will be honored as Humanist of the Year by the American Humanist Association. Yes, that Dr. Fauci, Director of the National Association of Allergy and Infectious Disease. He's quoted as saying, "I look upon myself as a humanist. I have faith in the goodness of mankind, and I am less enamored of organized religion than I am with the principles of humanity and goodness to mankind and just doing the best that you can." I am an over 40-year member here at UUYO, and I am also a religious humanist, and I prefer the pronoun we. I grew up in a devout Christian family. My father was Catholic and my mother Southern Baptist. When I was in kindergarten, another kid told me there was no Santa Claus, actually no Saint Nick, and that your parents actually brought the gifts. Eventually, I began to question other Christian myths and religious myths in general. One of my undergraduate degrees is in science, chemistry, physics, math, and biology. And it was therefore a natural progression to try to resolve problems through the use of science and reason, which are humanist convictions, and they are also basic to medicine and just good health. Rather than looking to religious traditions, humanism instead focuses on helping people live well, achieve personal growth, and make this world a better place. It does not embrace the supernatural beliefs. I mentioned that I am a religious humanist, finding value in communities such as UUYO to gain knowledge from others and attain personal growth. Today, I'm going to tell you about two of the many people I met downstairs in Channing Hall that changed my views, and in so doing, my life's convictions. Over 40 years ago, I met a true Renaissance man who became one of my best friends. He was very outgoing and enthusiastic about our church, and would go up to a visitor and new member and say, "Hi, I'm Roger Jones. I'm an atheist." And after a while, this didn't set very well with me, and I said, "Roger, why do you tell people what you don't believe? why don't you put a positive spin on it and tell them you're a humanist? And eventually he did, and even went to humanist meetings in Cleveland. In a bit, I'm going to tell you about another remarkable Unitarian Universalist humanist that I met here shortly later in the service. And we're going to light this chalice in the honor of religious humanists and Unitarians, and in the spirit of we.
Today's covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Today's offertory. Each month, we give to an organization that supports transformation within our community, which is the heart of our mission. Our church's historic commitment to the well-being of our community, we give 100% of our non-designated money to those in need. UUYO's Give Away the Plate recipient for the month of July is Plant Ahead, Ohio.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak on behalf of Plant Ahead, Ohio today, and let me be the first to extend my gratitude to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Youngstown for inviting us to be the recipient of July's Give Away the Plate. A little about myself. My name is Zach Felger. I am a lifelong native of the Youngstown area, advocate for various beautification projects throughout our area. I'm a current environmental science student at Youngstown State University. I have an affinity for ecology and natural resource management. I first became involved with Plant Ahead Ohio after being introduced to the organization by one of my amazing professors at YSU, Dr. Colleen McLean. As the most recent addition to the board for PAO, I am honored to be part of such a devoted group of individuals on the cusp of doing some truly wonderful things for our community and for our planet. The importance of community initiative is what I would like to promote on behalf of PAO today. Organizations like Plant Ahead Ohio are addressing big picture issues such as the climate crisis through localized strategic initiatives coordinated just by passionate residents. These localized initiatives are vital for the longevity of not just our local communities, but for our entire planet. The impact that one person can have on the community is impossible to quantify, but the true magic happens when those individual actions become a collective action. You know, as like-minded individuals unite to tackle the plaguing issues of our planet. Those once insurmountable issues look a lot less daunting with that kind of collective effort. It's all with high hopes that our organization can bring sustainable long-term impact to all the communities and residents we are involved with, you know, all while contributing to combating the climate crisis. An upcoming project that we are seeking support for is in collaboration with the Summit Academy, which is a nonprofit school out in Warren, Ohio for alternative learners. I would just want to give credit to Sarah Thomas, who invited us to be a part of this project. I personally had her for biology, so it's wonderful to get to kind of come full circle and work with her. You know, the goal of this project, however, is to create a urban mini forest on around 2 acres of land as a way to offset CO2 emissions, and also as a way to provide an alternative learning experience for the youth that will be involved in the initiative. It will also serve as a way to educate the surrounding community about the threat of the climate change and how they can be an integral part in the efforts to combat it. What I personally believe is needed most right now is more boots on the ground, you know, citizens to stand up in their local communities and, you know, unite to fight, climate change. So it's with much appreciation when I say, thank you so much to the UUYO for standing up and uniting with us at Plant Ahead Ohio to combat climate change for the betterment of all. So thank you all so much for having me today. It was an honor speaking to you all today. Thanks.
Please join me for a moment or two in meditation.
For the reading this morning, I've chosen some excerpts from a sermon by Bruce Clear titled The Humanist in Me. I've come to discover what most people know about humanism they learned from the religious right, televangelists like Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson. According to them, humanism is not only the world's greatest evil, but the most deceptive of all religious traditions. They are committed to doing away with every vestige of moral behavior that distinguishes man from animals. Every evil, rape, promiscuity, abortions has been laid at the door of secular humanists and atheists. In contrast, actually, humanism assigns predominant interest to human affairs as compared to the supernatural or abstract, and believe that people are capable of controlling their own affairs. Humanism is an ancient tradition dating back to the early Greek thinkers like Socrates and Aristotle, who identified reason as more effective than superstition. During the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo embraced humanist philosophy. And during the Enlightenment, the scientific method offered a new standard for evaluating truth and testing human knowledge. In the modern day, Bertrand Russell represents the best of humanist thinking. A thirst for knowledge, a commitment to justice, and optimism about the progress of humanity. He wrote, "Three passions, simple but overwhelming, governed my life: the longing for love, the search for knowledge, and unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind. Humanism is not a set of beliefs as much as a set of commitments. It means being concerned about this world rather than an afterlife, and being committed to improving the human condition. Humanism as an organized movement in the United States began with Unitarian Universalist churches. In 1933, the American Humanist Association was formed, and of the 84 people that signed the Humanist Manifesto I, over half were Unitarian ministers. What then is the difference between Unitarian Universalism and humanism? Both are concerned with values, freedom, reason, and tolerance. Humanism, however, has a rational litmus test, while Unitarians have a much more tolerant view of other religions and spiritual traditions.
Good morning. I am pleased to participate in the first on-site service since COVID began at the UUYO. As you know, Joseph, a lonely position, has presided over services here all alone. Gene and I are very advantaged. The disadvantage is I'm talking into a camera, and as I go through today's sermon, or presentation as I call it, I hope that you won't be upset if I have to look down every once in a while. I do have a real advantage in that I get to hear live music, and the music is wonderful. Thank you. My name is Randy Cox, and today's sermon is in 4 chapters. Chapter 1, I'm not angry, I'm just skeptical. With a declared atheist and humanist at the lectern, I'm sure that many of you are expecting shock and awe. Well, let's get the party started and start with shock and awe. I now begin with a reading from the book of Timothy. I have an apology to make. I'm afraid I've made a big mistake. I turned my face away from you, Lord. I was too blind to see the light. I was too meek to feel your might. I closed my eyes. I couldn't see the truth, Lord. But then like Saul on the Damascus road, you sent a messenger to me, and so now I've had the truth revealed to me. Please forgive me for the words I've said. I'll no longer betray you, Lord, and I will pray to you instead. And I will say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. These words come from the song, Thank You, God, by the great Australian comedian, concert pianist, and atheist, Tim Minchin. Like Tim, and in regards to a higher power, all I've ever asked for is evidence. In Tim's case, He wrote these words after hearing a long story about Sam and Sam's mom. After Sam's congregation assembled and prayed at one of those big shiny houses on the hill, Sam's mom was healed. She was given the gift of sight. Her sight, after a brief enigma, was fully restored. Tim had witnessed a miracle. The song, Thank You, God, continues, and Tim Mitchen, being a wonderful skeptic, dissects the story. I can't sing this because it's extremely complicated. This story of Sam's has but a single explanation: a surgical God who digs on magic operations. No, it couldn't be mistaken attribution of causation, born of coincidental temporal correlation, exuberated by a general lack of education, vis-a-vis physics in Sam's congregation. And it couldn't be that all these pious people were liars. It couldn't be an artifact of confirmation bias, a product of groupthink, a mass delusion, an emperor's new clothes style fear of exclusion. No, it's more likely to be an all-powerful magician than the misdiagnosis of the initial condition, or one of many cases of spontaneous remission, or a record-keeping glitch by a local physician. No, the only explanation to Sam's mom seeing, they prayed to an all-knowing super being, to the omnipresent master of the universe, and he quite liked the sound of their muttered verse. So for a bit of a change from his usual stunt of being a sexist, racist, murderous expletive, he popped down to Sam's mom home and just like that used his powers to heal the cataract of Sam's mom. A miracle, and all we've ever asked for is evidence. Chapter 2, I met a modern saint. Entertain me and indulge me, if you will. Let's put on our thinking caps and enter into a worthy thought experiment. Imagine a world with no God. How would it be different? Would it be a better place, or would it be world gone wild? Imagine or think of the movie Mad Max. Let's take a moment or two in silence and ponder this question. I'll wait. Maybe some of you arrived at some of the conclusions that I did. I'll share some of my thoughts. Imagine a world without endless religious wars. Imagine a world where female genital mutilation was not a thing and women were treated like men. Imagine a world where the tribes from Palestine and Israel were able to celebrate in the great city of Jerusalem as one. Imagine a world where doctors, rather than a deity, were praised for their ability to heal. Imagine a world where the color of your skin, ancestry, or sexual orientation would be irrelevant. Imagine a world where science and the scientific process were the gold standard. I don't subscribe to Christopher Hitchens' idea that religion poisons everything, though every once in a while I ponder that thought, and I do find some merit in his ideas. I watched a Christian documentary the other day where Mel Brooks, the great Mel Brooks, portrays Moses and bestows upon man the 15 commandments. Not consistent with my Christian upbringing or schooling, and to my surprise, Moses drops one of the stone templates and proclaims, "I give you the 10 commandments." I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the 10 commandments, but I'll give you a little refresher course. Here they are. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall make no idols. You shall not take the Lord your God in vain. Wow. The first three might suggest that our God is a bit of a narcissist. Once you get past the worship three, as I call them, or worship me three, the rest are pretty good. Keep the Sabbath holy day. We happen to be here on Sunday. Honor your father and mother. Pretty good. I loved mine. You shall not murder. I don't want to be murdered, so that seems pretty good. You shall not commit adultery. Another good idea. Commitment is commitment. You shall not steal. I'd suggest you borrow my items. And you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And the final one, which I know a lot of people have a tough time with this one, you shall not covet. Perhaps the other five address the important issues that I raised during my Imagine a World Where part of the presentation. The optimist in me would like to suggest that in one of the five simply contain the advice of wash your hands after using the bathroom. Imagine how many people would have survived. We'll come back to the 10 Commandments later in my presentation and move on to how I became an atheist. For as long as I can remember, the Cox family and their offspring have been indoctrinated or raised in the non-evangelical Protestant tradition. My mother was raised Catholic, and she left the Catholic Church to marry my father. I came along in 1967, and soon after my birth, I was baptized in the Methodist tradition. By approximately 8 or 9, I had met the criteria for confirmation. Like most Methodist families, we attended weekly church services. I attended Sunday Bible school. We went to church almost every week. We did pretty good. And we attended church social activities, and I also went to the Methodist summer camp. Looking back, all my Methodist teachings and the Bible were portrayed in a very positive light. According to my educators, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit could do and would never do any wrong. Life was pretty darn good. For the most part, I lived my life according to Methodist teachings and sincerely believed that if I continued down this path, my reward would be eternal salvation. A pretty good deal. I never really thought about other faiths or religions until my mid-teens. My best friends were also good Christians. Greg Poland was a devout Catholic, and my other great friend is George Avramis and practiced Greek Orthodoxy. According to Greg, George was Catholic light, and I was Christian light. A bell went off in my head. How could the three of us, all Christians, practice three different faith traditions? Three different paths. Spent a great deal of time at Greg Poland's family home, just about a mile from my house. I could be there in about 8 minutes. And I loved his mom, Mrs. Poland. She was an amazing cook. And honestly, I can still taste her calzone and cannoli today. Besides being a great cook, Mrs. Poland was a devout follower of Christ. She was Catholic. I honestly believe to this day that Mrs. Poland had a special phone and she could ring up the Pope on demand. As you can imagine, we had awe-inspiring conversations at the Poland family dinner. I was also regularly invited to attend Catholic Mass with their family. To my surprise, it was quite different than our Methodist service. First of all, they had fantastic costumes. They had hats. We didn't have hats. They also spoke a foreign language. And I also really enjoyed getting sprayed with the holy water. That was pretty cool. And the Mass was really impressive. I don't know how anyone could not feel close to God with all the splendor and grandeur. To my surprise, even though I had been confirmed in my Methodist church and believed that I understood the meaning of receiving the sacraments, I was told to remain in my seat during communion. I also remember being troubled by the fact that Mrs. Poland, this wonderful person, was not allowed on the altar. That really bothered me. As I mentioned, Mrs. Poland and I had fantastic conversations. As a teenager, I recall many discussions and topics. We discussed her steadfast commitment towards protecting the life of onboard fetus, even under the most dire of circumstances, including rape. We talked about the death penalty. She was pro, and I was really confused. And a rare illness that I didn't really understand at the time, homosexuality. A little side note, Mrs. Poland's best friend would often join us during our conversations, another good Catholic. Her name was Linda Salzman Sagan. Yeah, I'm guessing that you might have figured it out. I was able to be with the wife of my now hero, Dr. Carl Sagan, on a regular basis. I think I really screwed up. I probably shouldn't have been sending messages or notes to girls in my class. I should have sent them to Dr. Carl Sagan. For 40 years plus, I engaged in theological discussions with Mrs. Poland. In all this time, Mrs. Poland never once raised her voice or launched an ad hominem attack. She never questioned my integrity, my character, or my chosen path. What Mrs. Poland did best is she engaged me in conversation and she made me think. It was okay that I was not amongst the faithful or a doubter, and I loved that about her. Mrs. Poland died last year, and she was a really special person, and I loved our fruitful discussions. Today, I wonder where her special phone went. Chapter 3, Science, bitches. A favorite meme of mine features a beautiful photo of the space shuttle launching from the planet Earth. The words below the photo say, science, because you just can't pray this shit into space. Until 2007, I practiced Christian light, and then everything changed. First, I began questioning my Republican political beliefs. In my humble opinion, my party had shifted gears and became very extreme. I mostly blame this on the rise and popularity of the born-again evangelical Christians. They had commandeered my political party. My party seemed no longer to be empathetic. The second event that occurred in 2007 was a gift at Christmas, a really nice little small telescope. So in the spring of 2008, my friend Jim Calavota and I loaded this new 4-inch telescope in the car, and headed out to find dark skies. Success. For the first time in my life, I was able to see firsthand the moon, planets, nebula, and distant galaxies. I was awestruck. In typical Randy fashion, in for a penny, in for a pound, 2 weeks later, after first going out and seeing the skies, a brand new 11-inch telescope arrived at my home. Once again, in typical Randy fashion, 6 months later, a 12-inch Ritchie Crichton observatory-grade telescope arrived at my home, and we began to formulate plans to build an observatory. Jim Calavoda, Dr. Larry Kuklinski, and I built Northwest Pennsylvania's premier astronomical observatory. Both amateur and professional astronomers saluted our local success and achievement. But that's not really the heart of my story. Excuse me. Simply observing the heavens was not enough. Astronomy pushed me once again to think and to learn. My quest for understanding is the great story. The answer to life's big question were before me. All I needed to do was simply learn about physics. So I hit the books. I learned that the math that I was taught in high school and college was grossly inadequate, and honestly, I had forgotten most of it. I gained a basic understanding of particle theory. A lot has happened in 40 years. Neutrinos, quarks, gluons, virtual particles, although predicted, are all relatively modern understanding. And let's not forget the Higgs boson, or better known as the God particle, predicted and found. I studied Newtonian mechanics and Einstein's general and relative theories of relativity. Everyone knows Einstein for E equals mc squared, but honestly, in my opinion, it really is not his best work. I also learned about the newly formed or newly found dark energy and dark matter. For those that don't follow the happenings in astronomy, we live in a really very, very, very special time. I proclaim that the intellectual elite have done a darn good job at figuring things out. One more subject that I needed in my tool chest. I needed to become a critical thinker. So I studied basic logic, logical fallacies, and biases. As you can imagine, a basic understanding of astronomy and physics, when combined with critical thinking skills, really threw a wrench into my Christian life. After reading the Bible from front to back twice, I had one last question. To my surprise, I learned the answer to my final question after meeting Dr. Lawrence Krauss and reading his newly published book titled A Universe from Nothing. For those that are not familiar with Dr. Krauss is a physicist and cosmologist, and at the time that I read his book, he was teaching at Arizona State University. I met Dr. Krauss in probably the funniest of all places, the Chautauqua Institution, in the summer of 2012, and our meeting came by chance. Upon my return from the restroom, I met Dr. Krauss after he had stolen my front row seat to his speech. He was exceedingly kind and spent 15 minutes answering a barrage of questions from me. Did you guess my final question? I'll be honest and tell you the answer. Here it is. I really don't know. As an atheist, I'm okay with that. Chapter 4, Got UU? Let me begin by saying that I am proud of any organization that allows an atheist, a declared non-believer, and humanist the opportunity to preside over a weekly sermon and service. I am told that I am in good hands and that my words would be well received. A safe space, if you will. I received a funny voicemail from our vice president and our worship associate, Dr. Gene Pasateri, last week. If I might paraphrase his words. Hi, Randy. I have a couple of questions regarding next week's service. I'm concerned about the prayer portion of the service. As an atheist, I'm guessing you're not real keen on prayer. As a religious humanist, I honestly don't know who to pray to. In typical beauty pageant fashion, Gene continued, perhaps I'll just talk about world peace. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that today's attendees are in for a treat. How did I get here? It's actually a funny story, and I wish that I could show you pictures. Years ago, while vacationing in Provincetown, Massachusetts, Sue and I met Scarby, a beautiful transvestite woman. Scarby holds a weekly game of bingo at the Provincetown Unitarian Universalist Church. To promote her weekly bingo event, Scarby rides an old 3-speed, overly decorated bicycle around Provincetown, up and down the strip, and promotes Unitarian bingo. And let me tell you, Scarby is always dressed to the hilt. You might find some photos on the internet. She is always dressed for success. Well, Sue and I were in. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but Sue and I did not win at bingo. My prize was a great photo of Scarby and I and Sue posing in front of this grand bingo board. When I first got in the photo frame, I had Scarby and Sue on either side of me and my hands down to my side. Scarby looked at me and said, "What is wrong with you?" He said, "You have two beautiful women by your side. How about a little bit of attitude?" And he took my hands and put them like this. And I leaned back a little bit, and I've got a wonderful photo of that event. What kind of church would allow transvestite bingo? Upon entering the Provincetown Unitarian Universalist Church, I noticed a colorful sign with the following proclamations. I'm sure our friends are familiar with this signboard, but let me read it for you, since I'm sure you can't see it. In this house, we believe Black lives matter. Women's rights are human rights. No human is illegal. I love this one. Science is real. Love is love. Kindness is everything. I said that I would return to the 10 Commandments. By following the teachings of my Christian upbringing, I don't know if we could arrive at such modern and righteous commandments as this sign. Think about that for a moment. Maybe as a humanist and Unitarian Universalist, these commands are natural and almost second nature. Maybe that's why I am so happy to call the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Youngstown my home. The last 2 years of my life have been nothing short of difficult. Sue, as you know, Sue and I contracted COVID-19. Thankfully, we have both somewhat recovered. I also lost both my mother and my father. Death as an atheist is especially difficult. I don't believe that I will ever see them again. But thanks to relentless calls from Reverend Joseph and from my UUYO friends, it really helped tremendously to hear your voice. I don't know how I could have gotten through this time without their support and the love of my life, Sue, and my UUYO community. Love is love, and kindness is everything. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I close today's sermon by returning to the great Tim Minchin and words from his animated movie, Storm. As you may remember hearing this from a chalice lighting that I did a couple of years ago. Isn't this enough? Just this world? Just this beautiful, complex, wonderfully unfathomable, natural world? How does it so fail to hold our attention that we have to diminish it with the invention of cheap, man-made myths and monsters? But here's what gives me hope. I am tiny, insignificant bit of carbon. I have one life, and it is short and unimportant. But thanks to recent scientific advances, I get to live twice as long as my great-great-great-uncles and aunts. Twice as long to live this life of mine. Twice as long to love this Sue of mine. Twice as many years of friends and wine. And if perchance I have offended, think of this and all is mended. We'd as well be 20 minutes back in time for all the chance you'll change your mind. Thank you.
In lieu of a prayer, I'm going to tell you about another remarkable person I met downstairs in Channing Hall, Walt Courtley. He possessed the qualities I respect most in a mature individual. He was patient, kind, generous, and humble. When he passed away in 2004, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, now our UUA president, did his memorial service, and he wrote his own eulogy. He wrote, "I'm a Unitarian Universalist humanist, believing in the continued evolution of the planet since the Big Bang, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every person, a firm believer in the democratic process. Every person has a right to be heard. We are on this wonderful planet just one time. We should do all we can to preserve it for our children and grandchildren. Wars are fought for economic reasons only. They can never be justified, only rationalized. We should listen to the idealism of our teenagers. They have much to contribute toward a better way of life. Because I do not believe in an afterlife, it is my reward, my responsibility to help make your life better here and now. My reward and responsibility to make your life better here and now." We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These, we, religious humanists and Unitarian Universalists, keep in our hearts until we meet again.
As you depart, please remember the one great fact. You are loved, and you are never truly alone.